Greetings, quilters. It's been a tradition in our family to give hand-embroidered dish towels as gifts for wedding showers, Christmas, birthdays, and other special events. Dish towels make great gifts that have a very personal touch and bring back fond memories of loved ones. These are some of the towels we have received over the years. You can see that there are differences. Some have flowers, some do not. The girl is facing left or right. The lace is different, and some have trimmed the towel to match the bottom of the skirt. Notice that these are raw edge applique. We wanted to spruce up the girl a little, so with the help of our EQ8 program, we created this pattern to give some variety to the dish towels. We want to do turned edge applique, so we made a pattern with a seam allowance and one without seam allowance. We want to keep our patterns for years, so we made plastic templates for both raw edge and turned edge. The template used to cut raw edge pieces and the template used to cut pieces with seam allowance can be made with regular template plastic or paper. Plastic should be clear to aid in aligning the template to the print of the fabric. We use a spray adhesive to bond the printed side of the pattern to the high temperature plastic. Regular template material will melt if used to press the seam allowance. Here you can see the difference in size of the two templates. I found these templates that we used in another project for raw edge applique. We made freezer paper patterns and ironed them to the fabric. Cutting the fabric using the freezer paper leaves no lines on the fabric. Over the years we have bought dish towels that have been different sizes and the fabric has been different. Also, the edges needed to be finished. We did wash and iron these towels first. We use a 2-ruler method to square these towels. Just folding them in half would have been simpler now that I think about it. To hem the edges of the towel, a straight stitch foot works best, but it can be done with a regular foot. This towel had 2 sides already hemmed, and I chose to just hem the selvage edge without cutting it off. Now that the towels are finished and ready to go, it's time to address the fabric that we are going to use for the girls. Some of this fabric has been handed down from ages gone by, possibly 70 years or more. Other fabric is from current stashes. It's important that the fabric is starched and pressed so that the small pieces are not distorted in the handling or cutting process. We did not glue the seam allowance pattern to the template material. We just marked each template so that when we cut the fabric, we knew if the pieces were facing left or right. We used a pen to mark the fabric, but a pencil or disappearing marker would have been better. We also could have used freezer paper patterns ironed to the fabric. We carefully cut the fabric to the marked line. We keep each set in a plastic bag to protect them and to keep them together. This is also a good time to match thread with each set. Now we are ready to turn under the seam allowances of the fabric. For this we need heavy starch. Using a small iron gives the best control, but any iron will work. This device will help move the fabric and keep the fingers from getting burnt. We spray a small amount of starch into a small container. We use the small brush to apply the starch. A large pan will keep the iron safely under control. We are ready to prep our parts so they can be starched and formed to our template. We're ready to prep our parts so they can be starched and formed to our template. Convex curves can be gathered to fit the curve, but the concave curves need to be cut so the fabric can stretch to fit the curve. We lay the fabric on an impervious surface like a dinner plate and paint the seam allowance with the starch. We put the starched piece on the ironing board and then align the heat-resistant template to the part and begin folding the seam allowance over the template and press it in place. It is important to press both sides of the fabric while the template is in place. After removing the template, adjust the seam allowance back in place and press both sides of the fabric to make sure it is dry and that it will stay in place. The part should be neatly pressed and look similar to this. We are now ready to begin the assembly process. We start by putting our pattern on a light box. If you do not have a light box, you can just eyeball the assembly process. Put the dish towel over the pattern and align it as desired. Apply water-soluble glue to each piece and put it in place. You may want to do a dry run on this step without the glue to get the correct gluing sequence. We're almost ready to begin sewing, but first we need to select a stitch pattern and then do an imaginary sewing path to reduce the starts and stops. Once the sewing direction and the path has been established, it's time to begin sewing. With the girl sewn to the dish towel, we can begin the embellishments. We are using a lace to trim the skirt, but the hat and cuffs could also have some embellishment as well. We cut a template so the lace on the dress would be in the same place on all of the towels. We use a weight to hold the template in place. We apply the glue to the lace and glue the lace in place. When we sewed the lace in place, we offset the needle, hoping that the lace would feed through the sewing foot smoother and without catching on the foot. We use a fine thread for this process. We sewed the top and bottom of the lace to make sure that it stayed in place. Time to trim all loose ends. We hand embroidered the hand and flowers for each towel, making each towel unique. We hope that you have enjoyed these dish towels and that you have some thoughts as to a project you would like to do for your family or friends. We hope that this was fun for you, as well as instructive. We wish you well, and thanks for watching.